Hello everybody, welcome back to Screen Stars and welcome to my Q&A answer session. Now, as you know, a couple of weeks ago the channel passed 4,000 subscribers and I said I was going to do a Q&A. I got quite a few questions, so I am going to use this video now to answer these questions. So we'll make a start straight away because, like I say, we've got a decent amount to get through. And the first set of questions come from Leo over at Geek Legion of Doom. Thank you, Leo. And the first question is, what stereotypes do you think are true and untrue for the people from the north and south of England? Honestly, I'm not really a person that kind of believes in stereotypes, and there's a long answer to that, if you like. I mean, basically I come from a long history of working in the care industry, about 30 years, and I've worked really hard at trying to not label people, not use stereotypes. So I don't necessarily think there are. I mean, I'm sure some of you might have some ideas. Some people say the people in the south are a little grumpier than the people in the north. I don't know if I buy it. People are people no matter where they live, really, essentially. So I don't necessarily buy into the whole stereotype thing, is my truthful answer, if I'm really honest. The second question was, what film desperately needs a sequel? Really good question, and to be honest, it took me a long time to really think of some answers for this one. And the first one that sprang to mind was District 9. We were kind of promised a sequel to that and we never got it, but I would love to see a sequel to District 9. I want to see a sequel to Man of Steel. I think how they've kind of managed the Superman character in the DC universe so far is pretty poor. Apart from Man of Steel, I enjoyed that film, so I think I would love to see a dedicated Superman sequel to that. And I really want to see another Star Trek film with the current crew that we have, you know, the Chris Pine crew, the Kelvin Timeline crew. There's all sorts of stuff going on with that. Not sure we'll ever get to see it, but I would really like to see another one because I've enjoyed the first three. And what's the most unexpected thing from being on YouTube? Another really good question, Leo. Quite a hard one to answer, and the best thing I can come up with is that it always is humbling to me that people are genuinely interested in my opinion. I'm not sure I expected that. And I get quite a lot of people that say in the comments and things like that on my videos, whether it be film reviews or game reviews, you know, that they value my opinion, and I've had many people say, oh, I'm going to go and buy this now on the back of your review, or I've played this game on the back of your review and I'm really enjoying it, thank you, etc, etc. Or people will comment and say that's one of the most balanced reviews I've ever seen, one of the most honest reviews. So that's the most unexpected thing. I mean, you hear all this poisonous stuff on YouTube, the communities, and maybe as my channel grows, hopefully, maybe that will happen. Maybe it'll get a bit more toxic, but right now the community on my channel is really, really nice and supportive, and I get some really, really fantastic comments. So that's probably the most unexpected thing. I don't think it's probably just as toxic as some make out. Thank you for those questions, Leo. The next questions are from Marvin at Marvin's channel, who's been a long time subscriber and supporter of the channel. So thanks for your questions, Marvin. And the first question is, what TV shows am I currently watching? And that's Dexter. I'm re-watching Dexter and reviewing each season. I've put the first 2 seasons reviews on the channel. But because of the nature of what I do with my job, my family, and all the film reviews I do and all the gaming reviews that I do, I don't really have time to watch more than really one show at a time. So I've just finished The Haunting of Bly Manor, and we moved on to Dexter. So I'll finish Dexter and then we'll move on to something else and watch together. I tend to watch TV shows with my wife. We watch them together, generally speaking. So that's the TV show I'm currently watching. The second question from Marvin is, what's my opinion on Martin Scorsese's comments about the MCU not being cinema? Well, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and you know, because of who Martin Scorsese is, people are going to listen, I guess. But I think it's a bit naive from Martin Scorsese. You know, these popcorn blockbuster films are not new. Okay, you can argue the MCU has taken it to a whole new level, But you know, we for many decades we've had these summer blockbuster popcorn movies. They're not new at all, so I do think it's a bit naive of him to say that. And of course, the cinema. You know, the feelings that I got watching something like Endgame, you know, those weren't false. That sense of excitement and joy, watching a film like that, a really good MCU film or any kind of blockbuster film, you know, they aren't fake feelings. So I think he might not like them, but he has to acknowledge that there is an audience for films like that out there. What game would I like to see Quantic Dream do next? Now, if you don't know, Quantic Dream do the Detroit Become Human game, Heavy Rain, things like that. They're very cinematic games. And the honest answer is I don't mind what they do next, because I am very likely to play it. I've enjoyed every single one of the Quantic Dream games, right back to Fahrenheit, which they released on, was it PlayStation 2? Yeah. I really like them games, the cinematic games. They're very good, and I think Detroit Become Human was an outstanding game that even made my recent top 10 PlayStation 4 generation games, if you like. So honestly, I don't mind what they do next. I really don't. I enjoy what they do, so I'm just looking forward to what they do next. Next question from Marvin. What's my reaction to Rockstar being lazy and just remastering Grand Theft Auto 5 again? Fair enough. I guess you can understand why they're doing it, Rockstar. Because GTA 5, I mean, it was originally released on the PlayStation 3, it got remastered for the PlayStation 4, and now they're going to do it again for PlayStation 5. And the reason being, we all know what the reason is. They want, because the GTA Online mode is so big now, it's so huge, it makes so much money for Rockstar, they don't want to lose that cash cow. So that's the only reason they're going to do it, or that's the only reason they are doing it. I won't be buying it. I already have it on PlayStation 4, so it might just transfer over to PlayStation 5, I don't know, but I don't play it very often anymore. I'm so over that now, that game. So you understand why they're doing it, and people are just going to buy it anyway because it's got its audience, clearly. But it is lazy, you're right. And did I hear rumours of the possibility of a Sin City TV show? If I'm honest, I haven't heard them rumours. I'm not sure how I would feel about that. I love the first Sin City. A completely visionary film, really fantastic. Sin City 2 was good too, but obviously not as good as the first one. I think that style of filmmaking now, if they do a TV show, they might have missed the boat. Maybe it might be 5-10 years too late, maybe the TV show, but who knows, you know, it might work. But I would certainly be interested maybe in watching a TV show. So thank you very much for those questions, Marvin. Now, Ugandan Toad, otherwise known as Dean, asked some questions, and the first question being is, what hobbies / interests do I have outside of gaming and movies? Well, it's more like what did I have before COVID, I suppose, and lockdowns and things. I enjoyed going to the gym. I used to be a bodybuilder many years ago. I only really train now to try and keep in shape and, you know, stop my joints from seizing up, I suppose. And I started going to the gym last year with my son, who is turning 15 very soon. So that was nice to get back and to show him how to use the gym and that kind of stuff as well. But I only really go now, like I say, just for pleasure. I'm nowhere near as serious at training as I used to be. So that I certainly enjoyed. I have a wife, I have a son. I enjoy spending time at home with them. We have a dog, so I like going on walks with a dog. My wife has a horse, so I spend quite a lot of time at the stable, you know, helping out up there, because there's donkeys at the stable and chickens and cats and sheep and all that kind of stuff. So it's nice, especially during the summer, to go and spend some time up at the stable and enjoy the countryside, things like that. So I like to get out and about. I like to be with the family, and I like, when I can, get to the gym to try and stay in shape. So those are the things that I do like to do outside of my channel-y stuff. Which movie star would play you in my biography? Well, I've had a few comments on the channel of people saying that I look like Jack Black. So I guess Jack Black. I would say it's better than Shrek, I suppose, isn't it? But yeah, I'll go with Jack Black for that one. And the last question from Ugandan Toad is: if you were stranded on a desert island, which 3 items could you not live without? Is that food items or is that any item? If I was on a desert island, is there any Wi-Fi? If there's Wi-Fi, I couldn't live without my phone and tablet, I suppose. So that'd be 1 or 2 items if I had to choose between one or the other. I'm not really sure if it would be the phone or the iPad. Not the iPad, tablet. My PlayStation 4, if there's any power and I can use it. I don't know. It's a desert island. And what else? I probably couldn't live without Fanta Fruit Twist. The diet Fanta Fruit Twist, the sugar-free Fanta Fruit Twist. It's my favourite drink. It's in short supply these days, it would seem. I'm struggling to get hold of it, but it's absolutely lovely and delicious. So I probably couldn't live without some Fanta Fruit Twist. So thank you for those questions, Dean. Michael Coffey, who is a subscriber of the channel and comments quite regular, has asked me some questions. And the first one being, what was the first film that I fell in love with? That would have to be Star Wars. That was the first film I ever saw at the cinema. I went as a 4-year-old, never been to the cinema before. I remember queuing up with my parents and my brother and sister, not knowing why we were queuing up, not understanding what was going on, and then being sat down in the seat, and then this magic unfolding in my eyes. And that's when my love of cinema started, and my love of movies, and that is clearly the first film that I fell in love with. It would be Star Wars. First game I fell in love with, that's far more difficult. I would probably, I've been playing games since the Atari 2600 days, that's how far back I go. But the first game that I probably fell in love with was maybe Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation 1. Maybe Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. That started my love of RPGs, along with Final Fantasy VII. I'd probably have to go with them. If it's the first one, and I'm being honest, I would probably say Final Fantasy VII is probably the first game that I truly fell in love with. Favorite. Now, the next question from Michael is the favourite piece of memorabilia for my store. Now, I did mention on the 4,000 subscribers video that I used to have my own retail store, and I sold memorabilia and DVDs and all that kind of stuff. Now, my favourite piece of memorabilia that I ever had in the store was I used to sell autographs, so it was a Christopher Reeve autograph, and at the time I got this autograph, it was just a smallish photograph, maybe a 10x8 photograph of Christopher Reeve in his Superman costume with his autograph on it. But at the same time I had that, the new Superman film, Superman Returns, was just being released in the cinema. So I also had an autographed picture of Brandon Routh, who played Superman in that film, in his Superman costume. And at the time as well, there was an Empire magazine, and they had or it might have been Total Film, one or the two, and there was like a holograph picture, and when you tilted it, it changed from Christopher Reeve to Brandon Routh, because they look similar anyway. So I took both these autographs and this hologram thing to a local picture frame place, and I asked them to frame them up in a lovely frame with the thing in the middle, and then Christopher Reeve on the left, Brandon Routh on the right. It cost me about £40, £50 to get it framed up professionally, but I ended up selling it for about, I think it was about £700 maybe, but it just looked stunning. That's probably my favourite piece of memorabilia that I had in the store, if I'm honest. So thank you for the questions, Michael. Now then, Movie Massacre has asked me some questions, and the first one being, what made you start a YouTube channel? When I first set up this channel, it was essentially to try and figure out how to do it, because my son was pestering me to set one up for him. He wanted to do some stop motion videos on YouTube and things like that. So I opened one up for myself to try and figure out how to do it for him, and it sat dormant for ages, my channel. And then I went to the cinema to see Batman vs Superman, and I enjoyed the film, simple as that. And I didn't like all the negativity surrounding that film, so I decided to do a review on my channel of Batman vs Superman. It's still on the channel if you want to check it out. And it's really raw, is the review and stuff like that, but I wanted to get my point across. So that's why I set up the channel. That was the first video that I did, but I've always wanted a platform where I can do reviews. I've got a real love of movies and things like that, obviously, so I wanted to have a platform where I could do that, and that's what made me set up the channel and start reviewing. Do I have a favourite movie? Wow. The simple answer is no, because I've got so many movies that I love. But what I am going to do on the channel, I'm going to try and answer that question in the coming months. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a series of top 10 lists, maybe starting in the new year. I might get one up before the new year, of my top 10 movies from the 70s onwards, which is essentially my movies, my eras, from the 70s onwards. So I've set top 10 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties, 2010s movies. And the top 2 from each of those lists I will then compile into my top 10 favourite movies of all time, but I'm not sure I could put them in any discernible order, that list. But that I'm going to try and answer that question for myself, because it's an impossible answer to give, really. I don't love any one movie over another is the simplest answer I can give. Do I have a favourite movie genre? Well, years ago I probably would have said action or sci-fi, but since doing the channel I've really come to love horror films more than I used to. I mean, I've always enjoyed horror, but I've watched that many horror films since I've done this channel that I do have a real affection for horror. So again, there's no genre that stands out for me, but ideally if I could have a horror action sci-fi film, I'm in hog heaven. You know what I mean? Something like Aliens, that sort of thing. That would do it for me. And in perfect Movie Massacre style, his last question was, what are my favourite boobs in film? Well, that can only be Jamie Lee Curtis in Trading Places, in my opinion. Mic drop. Right. Johnny775 has asked, what helped you stay positive after I had to close my store? So as I mentioned before, I used to have the store. I couldn't keep it open, and when I closed the store, it was a sad day because it had always been my dream. However, what kept me positive was essentially my family, because when I opened the store, my wife had just given birth to our son, Jake. So it wasn't a case of feeling sorry for myself when I shut the store. I had to stay positive for my wife and my son. And we were kept very, very busy with Jake, who was just a little baby at the time. So that's what kept me focused and kept me positive, was that, really, the fact that I had my wife and my son to focus on. What's my favourite game of all time? There's a few that I'd throw into that hat. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic is in there. Syndicate. That's an old game that I used to play. Final Fantasy VII. All these games are very, very important games to me, but the one I would have to say is my favourite game of all time is probably The Witcher 3. That might not be a surprise to some of you watches my regular content, but that's the one game I've ever played that exceeded my expectations. I didn't believe they could make a game as good as they were promising, and they not only made that game, they made a better game than I was expecting. And it's a game I can play over and over again. It's a game I know I'll still be playing in a decade from now. It's that good a game. So that's my favourite game of all time. What's my favourite series of games? If I had to pick one, I'd probably say the Assassin's Creed games. It's a franchise I've really come to love. I wasn't a huge fan of it when it first came out. The first couple of Assassin's Creed games, I didn't really play that much at the time. My first real love of Assassin's Creed was when I started playing Assassin's Creed 3, and then Black Flag, things like that. And I've played every single one of them. And they all have the pros and cons, but they're all really, really good games, I think, for the most part, and I really enjoy Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So I would probably have to say the Assassin's Creed games is my favourite series of games. Lisa Loves asks, what movie performance changed your mind about an actor or an actress? That's a really good question, Lisa. And I've given it some thought. Probably I would say Tom Cruise in Jerry Maguire. Before that, I had no interest in Tom Cruise at all. I thought he was overrated. When I was much younger, I thought he was overrated. I had no time for Tom Cruise and his movies. And then when Jerry Maguire came out, his performance blew me away, as did that film, and from that point onwards I saw him in a different light. And I'm not sure what it was. Maybe it was because it was a lighter film and I saw that comedy stylings that he had in that film, but I think I just started to really appreciate him as an actor and a performer after watching that, and I had matured a bit at that stage as well. So probably Jerry Maguire in regards to Tom Cruise, and now I really respect him and his movies, even some of his earlier ones that I used to hate when I was young, I really enjoy. So thanks for that, Lisa. And Nick Simmons asked me what made me stop bodybuilding and how was my experience, and Lisa also expressed an interest in learning more about my bodybuilding background. Essentially, I started bodybuilding. Well, I started going to the gym when I was 14, and I fell in love with it, and it was on the back of obviously watching Arnie movies when I was young. I was obsessed with Arnie when I was young. Started going to the gym at 14. I did my first competition when I was 17, and it was in Fleetwood. It was a natural competition. I've done 3 competitions, 2 were natural, 1 that wasn't classed as a natural competition. And essentially what made me stop, there's a difference between being a bodybuilder and competing. What stopped me competing as a bodybuilder was the realisation that I wasn't good enough. I'm quite mature. I've always been quite mature from a young age, and I knew I wasn't good enough, and I wasn't prepared to do what I needed to do to get to a level that would, maybe get me in a top 3 in a good competition or something like that. And i.e., I wasn't prepared to take the drugs that you needed to take. So I stopped competing. I think my last competition I was 23 years old, so I stopped competing after that, but I still trained seriously until probably my early to mid 30s. And at that stage I'd met my wife, Lisa. I had other interests in my life, i.e. her, setting up a home, a house, moving on with my career, things like that. The thing is with bodybuilding, it kind of becomes an obsession, and sometimes it could be an unhealthy obsession. At my peak I was training 5, 6, 7 days a week, sometimes twice a day. I was travelling on a train to get to the gym and a train getting home, sometimes twice a day to do that until I passed my driving test. And then it was all I did, train, and it got too much. So thankfully, just as life does, I slowed it down, and I still appreciate And trust me, I mean, bodybuilding I think is the hardest sport out there, because you've not only got to do it in the gym, but you've got to do it at home with your diet and your nutrition, and I'd had enough of all that. It was exhausting, you know what I mean? So that's essentially why I stopped bodybuilding. I still train a little bit, you know. I wouldn't class myself as anything like anymore, not even close to a bodybuilder, but I still like to, because the majority of my training career was fully natural. I've still kept a decent shape. And most people, if you like, in bodybuilding that dabble in the things they shouldn't do, as soon as they stop bodybuilding it all disappears, that sort of thing. Luckily that wasn't the case with me. Thankfully I looked after myself. So yeah, that's essentially my story around bodybuilding. So yeah, thank you for the question, Nick, and thank you everybody for these questions. I've really enjoyed looking at them and answering them. I do appreciate all your support on the channel, and it really does mean an awful lot to me. Let's just see where 2021 leads with the channel. I am thoroughly enjoying my time here. As always, any suggestions in the comments for new content, let me know. And of course I will see you back with more content very regular on the channel. Thank you very much for watching, everybody.